and welcome today. And today I just want to speak to you about expressing who you are. We live in a world where there's a lot of perfectionism, there's a lot of correcting, there's a lot of editing, and there's a lot of making things the way that people would best want to perceive it. You see, there's something that we are starting to see, and what we are starting to see is that right now, in this time, there is a standard of beauty, there is a standard of how things need to be brought out, and everybody's trying to live for the standard. There's many people that are trying to deviate away from trends. However, the more trends they deviate from, the more trends are being created. Even the trend of not sticking to trends is something that is happening. People are starting to forget that there's an authenticity about who you are. And it doesn't matter if things are the same, it doesn't even matter if things are similar, but you as a person already knows what it is that you are trying to bring out to the world. But ultimately, what we are starting to find is that every single time we are brought about inspiration, when there's something that we are willing to express, we end up finding out that right at that time, there is a standard based on what the world would rather perceive as good and perfect. Now, a good example that I want to be using is singing. It is easy to know that Mariah Carey is a really great singer. It's also easy to know that Beyonce is a really great singer. However, somebody who has had it in their heart to sing and fully express themselves, to have not had the teaching as they have had, or as what we would like to call the talent as they have, they would actually restrict themselves from willing to express who they truly are. And this is primarily for the fact that they are comparing themselves to what the world sees as good and great. So the example that I would love to use is that of the flower and that of the tree. You will never ever see the flower compare itself to a tree because it knows that it's not a tree. If in one example you were to see the flower look towards a tree and see how big and great this tree is, and decides to let go of its petals, let go of the very center of it, and start to produce more and more leaves, what you'll end up seeing is, I have seen a rose that has had its flower cut off and only leaves were there and only thorns were left. You see, the sight is not necessarily as pretty as what I would like to see. But if the flower had just decided to be itself, when the flower decides to just be who it is, finally people start to appreciate it for who it truly is. And the tree never ever looked down on the flower, for the tree knows who it is. It stands tall in its own authenticity. It does not look down on any form of creation. In fact, what the tree does is, its very leaves is also used as an assistance to everything around it. And in full expression of who it is, when the tree decides to let go of the leaves, when it's time to let go of the leaves, we also see how the leaves change color. You see, the tree also is not afraid of expressing itself in so many ways. It familiarizes itself with the green leaves in the time of spring, and it familiarizes itself with the very bright colors of brown, of red, of white, of yellow, of orange, these autumn leaves that it starts to end up expressing in the times of fall. And at the time of winter, it fully expresses itself by letting go of the leaves that no longer serve it. And at the very base of this tree, it has this wonderful bed of multicolored leaves. And in the spring again, it blossoms. It may have its own mini flowers. Let's go of those flowers. Maybe it might bring forth some fruit, and we'll let go of that fruit, and it will bring forth again leaves. You see, in each and every stage of this tree's life, it has fully expressed itself in full authenticity. And we as people need to actually look at the flower, look at the tree as an example of that. The moment the flower decides to let go of any form of standard and finally expresses itself in its authenticity, not looking and worrying about what anything has to say about it, but just be. You see, that's what being is, and we on this earth are human beings. We are being into the becoming of who we truly are. At this very moment in time, you have not fully realized and conceptualized who you truly are as of yet. There is still a part of your journey that you still have left to fulfill. There's still so much greatness, the capacity of what you have still that still needs to actually come into actualization. And this is wonderful. You are at the point of where you're about to find out how much more great you are. So who you are right now is enough. At this very season, you are just what is needed in order to get you started. You see, if you set the standard for who you need to be, if you set the standard of what you need to express and show out, do you not think that anybody else will come to notice? For there is people that come in very similar situations to where they can relate. You see, there might have been a time where the flower also had this experience of maybe it's not the same as some other flower. You see, the sunflower maybe might have tried to compare itself to the rose, and it might have seen that the rose has more appreciation. But the sunflower has also so many uses. It provides us with oil. The sunflower follows the sun everywhere it goes. At the time of where the sun is not there, it faces another sunflower. It is remarkable in its own amazing way. And when the sunflower decides to express itself as sunflower, and the rose expresses itself as rose, its aroma, its fragrance, all of that is unique to itself. Humans cannot help but appreciate the sunflower for being a sunflower. And at the same time, it cannot help but appreciating rose for being a rose. You see, we are all multidimensional, and we are all unique in each and every way. And you are too, at this time, right now. The very form of expression that you have now, wondering what somebody else has to say about you, does not really matter. Because ultimately, we are all going to end up living and dying. If that person is not there anymore, what voice is going to replace that? You see, that's what the mind does when it's untrained and unfocused. It will find a replacement for the voice when that voice is no longer there. In fact, the voice echoes, and until you silence the voice, there's only one way to silence the voice. And I will break this one way into 3 parts. Number 1, silencing it directly. Number 2, action. And number 3, simply ignoring it. That is the best way in which we can silence the voices of telling us that our expression is not up to the standard of the world. You are part of the world, and your very part of your own expression is enough for the world. No bird thinks about its song when it ends up hearing another bird singing a very similar song. For it speaks and expresses for itself, and eventually there is another bird that sings a song that resonates with that of that bird, and they come together and they mate and become a family, bringing forth many more newer birds into this world, singing their own new songs of uniqueness, never ever trying to be like somebody else, but just trying to express itself and express the song that has been laid on its heart. So whatever it is that you are called to do, at this very moment in time, now is the only time that matters. And this is one form of expression that I actually learned the other day. It's a revelation that came to me. And this revelation is the past is actually filled with horror. The future is nothing more than a mere illusion. And now is all that there ever is. When you wake up the next morning, you're going to find yourself in the moment of now. Each and every single time you try to wait for yourself to be better, you're going to find yourself in a position of inadequacy. You are already enough as is. The fact that the inspiration was laid in your heart was already the go-ahead that you need to do what you need to do. I promise you, in a world where we actually had no social media, many people would fully express themselves unapologetically. In a world where there's no things such as childhood trauma and people having comments based on their own level of limitedness, there would have been no need to compare to anybody else. Everyone would express themselves fully. And this is what I love about being authentic. Authenticity doesn't have to have a definition. You said what it means to be authentic. And authentic equals being you, being yourself. And the same thing comes in line with spirituality. You see, the one component of who we are is spirit. And whether you try to or not try to, you are spirit expressing itself fully. We have come to life in order to live a lesson. And life is filled with lessons. Some make you feel blissful. Some bring sadness. Some gives you hope. And some puts you in utter helplessness. And that is okay. Because we end up knowing that in life, there is days and there's night. There's sunny skies and there's dark, cloudy skies. And I love the fact that we as people are able to find all of these different sides of us. And I feel that expression, Your creative expression is your soul's way of expressing itself spiritually. It is through action of expression of who you truly are that other people will be able to feel, not conceptualize, not try to have these different types of definitions as to what it truly is, but they will be able to feel the very feeling that you are feeling at that moment. And you've conquered it all. You've been through it all, and you have seen through it all. So there's no longer need for you as a person to worry about what anybody else has to say. It is time for you, and your time is now. Express yourself unapologetically and live free. Be you and be beautiful. Stay blessed.